If at any point today you enjoyed an apple, snacked on some almonds, or sliced open a melon, you should thank your local, regional, and national pollinator groups, as Matt Markey states in his 2019 article, Protecting Pollinators Deserves an Appropriate Urgent Buzz. There's been a sudden decline in bee population since the 1990s, as stated by Greenpeace, a non-governmental environmental organization, and this number has been further increasing as the years have gone by. There are many causes of this decline in bee populations that are avoidable. However, unless we find a way to avoid them, we will be faced with many direct impacts on our everyday lives. With a surveyed trend in the decline of bee populations, we should closely examine the factors that are causing this decline and how this decline will leave lasting effects on our lives. First, we will take a look at some background information on the decline in bee populations. The amount of bee colonies lost every winter is slowly increasing. Susie Nielsen states in her 2019 article, More Bad Buzz for Bees, Record Number of Honeybee Colonies Died Last Winter, that the University of Maryland and the Bee Informed Partnership released data that American beekeepers lost nearly 40% of colonies last winter, and that is the greatest reported hive loss since the survey began 13 years ago. Chase Purdy reports in his 2019 article, New record data shows there is a honeybee population still dying in record numbers, states that that number is up 3% from the hive loss recorded for the same period in 2017. The amount of managed bee colonies is low, while loss of colonies is high. Purdy also reports that according to data from the Bee Informed Partnership, winter bee colony collapse hit an all-time high in 2018. In addition, the reported number of managed bee colonies is at an all-time low, with less than 300,000 colonies, as data from the Bee Informed Partnership reports. In his article, Purdy also states that since the colony collapse trend was detected, scientists have been working intensely to try and figure out its cause. Next, we will look at some of the causes of the decline in bee populations. Nicole Miller Strutman, in her 2016 article, The Complex Causes of Bee Declines, states that neonicotinoids are slow-release agricultural pesticides that attack the central nervous system of insects. Greenpeace states in their 2014 report that large-scale herbicide application drastically reduces plant diversity and abundance, which limits food availability for bees. This brings us to our next cause of the decline in the bee population, and that is loss of food availability. Miller Strutman also states that land conversion to housing, roads, and other human infrastructure restricts and isolates patches of flowering plants. Greenpeace reports that recent studies have suggested that between 17% and 50% of pollinator species will suffer from food shortages because of projected climate change that modifies plant flowering patterns. This brings us to our final cause of the decline in bee populations, and that is climate change. Greenpeace states that many parts of climate change, such as increasing temperatures, changes in rainfall patterns, and extreme weather events, will have impacts on pollinator populations. These changes could affect pollinators individually or as a community, which will result in high extinction rates of pollinator species. Lastly, we will look at how the bees leave lasting effects on our everyday lives. The first effect we will notice is that in our food production. Nielsen states in her article that the U.S. Department of Agriculture reports that pollinators are responsible for every 1 in 3 bites of food that we take. Markey adds to this in stating that nearly 20 different varieties of crops, such as those that are planted and harvested all around us, are dependent on pollinators. Another effect of the loss in bee population will be noticed in our economy. Markey reports that the economic impact of pollinators is nearly $217 billion. Nearly $20 billion worth of food and beverage products in the United States each year are a result of pollinators, and Purdy adds to this in saying that crops make up $15 billion of that $20 billion total. The final effect we will notice in our everyday lives is in our ecosystem. Markey notes that pollination plays a major role in our master ecosystem. For example, flowering plants depend on pollinators for their development, survivability, and a sustainable diet. Goulson, Nichols, Butias, and Rothery state in their 2019 article, Bee Declines Driven by Combined Stress from Pesticides, Parasites, and lack of flowers that if pollination fails, ecosystems are eroded and we will lose reliable sources. In conclusion, I hope the survey trend of a decline in bee populations is important because of the causing factors that lead to this decline and how this decline affects our everyday lives. Many surveys have shown that an already low amount of managed bee colonies is slowly decreasing every single year. This decline is caused by commonly used agricultural insecticides, pesticides, and herbicides, the loss of food availability, and climate change. This will leave lasting effects in our food production, our economy, and our ecosystems. So I hope you consider these elements next time you're about to take a bite of your favorite foods, and remember to thank your local, regional, and national pollinator groups because without them, our lives would be much different.